Imagine it's the early 90s. Your parents have given you a Super Nintendo Entertainment System for Christmas, and one of the first games you get for it is this, Super Castlevania 4. You peer in wonder at the gothic box art, and eagerly read the back of the box and manual. You set up the SNES in your room and slot the game into the system, where you're met with a creepy, bug-filled title screen, which gives way to a haunting text intro. A storm rolls in as the sun sets, and the screen is filled with a horrifying fog floating over the smashed grave of Dracula. Finally, our hero, Simon, and his thunderous thighs make an appearance. There is nothing but ominous music, a bunch of floating candles, and a kick-ass skull mountain in the background in the first area you come to. It gives you a sense of isolation. It will simply be you versus the army of Dracula. With some trepidation, you begin whipping your whip back and forth and make your way to a drawbridge, collecting power-ups and hearts along the way. You cross the drawbridge, and it suddenly raises behind you. You are in Dracula's domain now. A fence raises, organs begin to play, and we meet our first skeleton warrior. The music builds, before finally splurging all up in your ears, and the game truly begins. There is something about the theme of Simon Belmont that captures all of the emotions you are going to experience during the game. The hope you have as you begin a new level, the fear as you come across strange new enemies and bosses, all the trials and tribulations, as well as the joy you have when completing a stage, are contained within this track. Yes, the first stage of this game does a brilliant job of sucking. See what I did there? Vampires suck blood? Anyway, it sucks you into the gothic world of Castlevania. And you can do this with your whip. Whee! As you make your way through the stage, you will realize that one of the biggest advantages this game has is how it controls. The platforming here requires precision, and thankfully, you actually feel like you're in control with this game. Simon can even fuck up his knees and crouch walk. Not something you could say about a lot of 2D platformers, especially before the 16-bit era. This game also grants you full control of the directions that you want your whip to attack in. 8 directions in all, baby, which is different, I believe, to any other 2D Castlevania game. Some people say this is overpowered and makes the game too easy, but it feels right, and most importantly gives you that sense of control. When you die, it's more likely that you fucked up, rather than it being some cheap death, caused by clunky and stiff controls. Though this game still has some cheap deaths. Oh yes. Your whip also allows you to swing across larger gaps, though getting used to jumping off at the right time took me a few attempts. There is even a very cool section where the screen rotates and you have to hang on to your whip in order to navigate to safety. And that leads to a very cool spinning hallway that shows off the mighty Super Nintendo's Mode 7 tech. In addition to your whip, you can find various secondary weapons, some of which are quite powerful. Strangely, in most of these older Castlevania games, you collect hearts, but these do not replenish health, which is kind of counterintuitive at first. Instead, they represent a use of your secondary weapon. For example, throw a knife, lose a heart. It bothered me a lot as a kid, and it kinda still bothers me now, but you get used to it, begrudgingly. Also, Simon can moonwalk. This game is broken into 11 stages in all, each having a unique feel, and containing a wide variety of enemy types. Whether it's cleaning out the stables filled with reanimated horse heads, navigating tricky currents in Monster Hand-infested waterways, exploring ghastly libraries and glittering treasure rooms, or dealing with spider-infested dungeons, Super Castlevania has an impressive variety of levels. Certain enemies in these levels, of course, are more of a pain to deal with than others. The Medusa heads can go and do one, for starters, and did no one teach these guys not to spit in public? I blame the parents, to be honest with you. You will also come across plenty of traps and pitfalls on your journey to defeat Dracula, and sometimes these will make you rage. It was definitely a combination of these things that led me to stop playing the game back when I was a kid. You might wonder where it was that my journey ended back then. Stage 8 of SCV4 takes place in a dungeon area filled with a variety of spiky obstacles, annoying eye monsters, and these drops of green I don't know what falling from the ceiling. Not too bad, you might think, except some of these are obscured by the game's own damn UI. All too much for any patience I had as a kid, and so my journey ended there back in the day. Back to 2024, there are many mini and end-of-the-level bosses. Some are quite easy, and you can simply brute force your way through the fight if you have to. Others present more of a challenge, and might require you to learn some kind of gimmick or exploit, or a way to make use of the environment before the fight becomes almost trivial. The platforms on which you need to fight with the dancers here, for example. At first they seemed unbeatable, and then you realize you can jump around them using the platforms quite easily. The bosses and sub-bosses range from classical monsters like Medusa and the Hydra-like Orphic Vipers, to classic horror movie monsters like the Mummy, or Frankenstein's monster, known as the Creature in this game. But come on. As well as a bunch of other monsters and undead entities, and even Death himself. Death and Dracula are best buds, didn't you know? The last few stages leading up to the final battle of the game is some of the best build-up I think I've experienced in a game. At this point, the numbered stages give way to ladders, and we begin by ascending the clock tower. The music here, Bloody Tears, is fucking awesome. Uplifting even, inspiring you to climb ever upwards, navigating the rotating cogs and gears of the tower. I didn't even mind the Medusa heads, or deathfalls in this stage, because the music is that damn good. At the top of the tower is the Mummy, a fight where you will need to find the best position to strike from, as there is limited space to move. Oh well, a bit more bloody tears, awesome. With the Mummy Act Mode and the second defeated, we are at the Castle Keep, and another banger of a track with Vampire Killer. Not a big fan of these fencing skeletons though. Bunch of assholes. We now rush across a crumbling bridge chased by bats. So many bats. And really, damn it Dracula, maintain your goddamn castle at least. Now we have to ascend once again, but this time we're being chased by this spiky wheel thing, while stairs crumble beneath our feet, and atmospheric fog trails across the screen, presumably coming from outside the walls of the tower. Seriously though, Dracula, can you bring in some stonemasons or something? But it doesn't really matter, because once again we have hype as fuck music with Beginning. Suddenly, platforms start whizzing past Simon's head, which we then use to climb higher and higher, and... God damn it, how was I supposed to know that was there? And so it begins. We get a boss rush. Slogra, Gaibon, and then the Grim Reaper himself. It was the first of those three, though, who gave me the most problems. Finding the right spot to stand and then moving out of his way was annoying. Eventually, squatting and moving in the central area seemed to work out best. Eventually. Gaibon honestly was a bit of a pushover, so let's not dwell on it, otherwise he'll feel bad. Then there was Death. No pushover for sure, but I got the idea of standing in the corner of the room behind this platform, and then it was a case of timing my attack correctly to deal with the mini scythes. I think I've read somewhere that flailing the whip around might have been a better strategy, but just attacking normally ended up being fine too. Though the number of scythes that fell out of Death as he died did freak me out initially, I thought I was going to get hit, die, and have to do it all over again, to be honest. But with that, a passage opens. Torches light the way to an ominous staircase. Word of advice here, stock up on hearts, especially if you are low on them. You can exit back down the stairs and come back to find the candles have returned. And you are going to want to have as many hearts as possible, because this fight, well, is a bit of a doozy. Purple lightning crackles on screen, and guess who should make an appearance but Dracula himself. The music here is odd, but it's definitely fitting. There's no over-the-top bombastic battle theme here, just a sinister mood with feelings of lament. Dracula simply teleports around the screen, launching fireballs that split when you strike them, or try to jump over. I found the cross to be especially helpful here. Throw the cross, jump and whip him, if you can. Later, he starts to attack by putting up walls of flame and summoning fire sprites that can be knocked out of the air. He may sometimes summon a purple firefly thing that buzzes around the screen. If you are able to strike it, you can get some healing out of it, but beware the lasers that are emitted in a circle after. Eventually, once you have learned his attack patterns and how to deal with them, you will whittle down his health low enough that the screen glows ominously red. Dracula reappears, but now with a gruesome skull face, and he uses lightning and... oh. Did you think it would be that easy? I'm the Dracula, bitch. Okay, well now it's personal. Fuck yeah! Die, vampire, die! And with that, Dracula is defeated. And Simon, Eyes of Wonder, looks on as the castle collapses in the morning sun. Super Castlevania 4 was my first, and for many years, my only time playing a Castlevania game. It wasn't until I played Lords of Shadow this year that I would next take control of a Belmont, and that game is far removed in terms of how it plays from this one. If anything, that game is more like the older PS2, PS3 God of War games. It's funny that the older graphics of SCV4 somehow do a better job at setting an atmosphere that is both creepy and foreboding. I realise that I haven't said much about the soundtrack of the game either, other than highlight certain tracks, but to be honest, it's all pretty damn fantastic. It takes you on a fucking adventure. If you've not experienced SCV4 yet, I strongly urge you to get the Castlevania Anniversary Collection. I've recently bought a bunch of these, and plan to go through all of the 2D Castlevania games over the coming year. But let me know your experience with SCV4, and if you have returned to Dracula's castle recently. Hopefully, with Konami seemingly showing more and more interest in video games in recent years, we will have a brand new CV game coming our way in the future. But this is going to be the final video I will be releasing this year of 2024, but don't worry, I will return in January of 2025. Jesus Christ, the years are flying by. So have a great new year, my squidlings, and I will leave you with the boss fights of Super Castlevania 4.